Hey everyone, this is Jairo Morales from The Grind Fitness and welcome to my channel. On this channel, you're going to learn how to take care of your body while we do this wonderful sport called Jiu-Jitsu. Everything from joint strength training classes to mobility classes, as well as yoga and many other professionals to teach you what is the best path for you and your Jiu-Jitsu journey. If you haven't already, please do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. You know what to do. Share this with somebody if you think this might help the community to be able to take care of their body for their journey on Jiu-Jitsu. Oos, guys. Hope to see you on the mat. Everybody, welcome to another mobility and movement. We're doing a little bit of spine today, but basically it's Recovery Sundays. So a lot of stuff that you're going to be learning today are just stuff that you can do to not only increase your mobility, but as well as to like kind of heal or give you some relief on some aches and pains that you might have. The goal here is to obviously do the best that you can. Give me 1 second. My computer's doing all kinds of funky stuff for some reason. Course, it only happens as soon as we start the class. Technology, we either love it or we hate it. Anyway, guys, the goal behind this class is to kind of help you possibly with your inverted guard. If you're like me, who has like zero flexibility, the goal behind this is to kind of do the best that you can. And then slowly work on it from as time goes on. The thing with the spine is that the spine is very rigid. It obviously protects your vertebrae. You're basically the junction for all the information of your body, so it has a tendency to be a little bit less or a little bit more stubborn than the rest of your body. So usually hands, feet, and spine are the most stubborn. So we start over. Let's go ahead and get into the 90-90. So if you've never been into the 90-90, put the front leg into 90 degrees, back leg into 90 degrees, exaggerate your chest up, actively press down on that front foot, and then try to hip hinge forward. So pretend as if it's somebody's pulling your chest at a 45-degree angle forward. And what you should be feeling is a little bit of a minor stretch in that front hip. Okay? From there, we're going to start with the pails and the rails in the back. So the pails is going to be pushing the foot down into the mat. The rails is going to be trying to lift the foot up. Prior to you actually trying to lift the foot up, what we want to try to avoid is asking our spine for help and rotating our back in order for us to create the leverage to lift it up. The goal here is to tighten up your core, tighten up your hip girdle, then lift the foot. We're trying to create a separation between your spine and your actual hip joint. Okay? But not yet. Just sit here for a stretch for like another few seconds here. From there, start pushing down on that back foot. Get to that 40% mark. The idea behind this is to try to slowly press into the mat and maintain the pressure into the mat. So not too hard, not too fast, and avoid pushing and then relaxing and then pushing again. Just hold it nice and steady. Check in with your spine. Make sure you're pushing your chest up, pushing your tailbone to the ceiling, actively pressing that front knee down as you push down on that back foot nice and steady. Keep pushing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tighten up your core, tighten up your hip girdle, then lift the foot. And hold that foot up. Tighten up that core more. 3, 2, 1. Slowly let it down. Relax the tension everywhere. As you can see, I don't have a very large range of motion. So some of you who are very inflexible, you probably won't even be able to lift your foot up, and that's okay. The idea is for you to try. It's intention versus over results. The results come over time. See if you can hip hinge a little bit more forward. Exaggerate the chest up, press that front knee down. Get more of an actual stretch on that front hip. And now start pushing down on that back foot. Try to increase the effort this time. Try to get yourself to about a 70 or 80% effort. Push. Just like that. Keep pushing. Check in with that front knee. Make sure you're pressing that front knee down. Exaggerate that chest up. Tailbone to the ceiling as you're steady with that back foot. You should start shaking by now. If you're not trembling, you're not putting enough effort into that back foot. That shake is basically you requesting information from your nervous system, and your nervous system doesn't understand what you're requesting. So it starts misfiring, which is good. You're learning and communicating to those rotators in your hip, which is what we want. Keep pushing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tighten up your core, tighten up your hip girdle, then lift the foot. Try to see if you can get 1 or 2 extra degrees. 3, 2, 1. Slowly let it down. Relax the tension everywhere. Now we're going to do a few lift-offs now. Okay, from here, you're going to, with the back foot, what I want you to do is you're going to lift it up as high as you can. Then you're going to rotate that foot down, put the foot down on the mat. From there, you're going to lift that foot up, rotate that hip back down to the starting position. And then again, lift the foot up or lift the leg up, rotate the hip externally, lay down the foot. Lift the foot up, internally rotate at the hip, bring the foot back down. And again. These are quite difficult. If you're holding everything strong, these are very difficult because you're trying to maximally rotate and flex that hip. One last one. Bring it down. Slowly get out of this. Get into what's called tabletop. Hands underneath your shoulders. Again, think meat of the hands into the mat, spreading your fingers out, shifting the crook of your elbow forward, shifting your weight so that your hands are over your chest, your shoulders are over your hands, walk knees underneath, toes tucked. From there, everything stays still, so tight spine. You're bringing your knee in total flexion, so hip flexion. You're opening up the hip. From there, you're internally rotating at the hip as you start pushing up into hip extension, bringing it back to the starting position. Then you're reversing, pushing into hip extension, externally rotate as you start to bring the knee around towards your elbow, bring it back to the starting position. One more. And reverse. The better you get at these, the more intense they become. Awesome. Other side. So I'm hurt on this side. I pulled my hamstring on this side about 2 weeks ago on the front leg, or my front leg. And on this side, I have a hurt ankle, torn meniscus on this left knee. And so my internal rotation on this hip is very limited. I have a lot of imbalances on my left side compared to my right. But now my right is starting to catch up because we do jiu-jitsu. So we're going to get hurt. Find that end range, exaggerate your chest up, press that front knee down, rotate that hip, rotate that tailbone to the ceiling, push that chest up. Here we go. Start pushing down on that back foot. Remember, not too hard, not too fast for the first round. Steady. 40% effort. You're definitely going to feel a difference from one side to the other, so just keep that in mind. One side's going to be stronger. One side you're going to be able to communicate better to. One side you're going to feel cramps more. Each side is going to be very, very different. Maintain that pressure down. Keep pushing. Steady. Check in with that front knee. Make sure you're pressing that front knee down. Exaggerating that chest up. Pushing that tailbone to the ceiling as you steadily push down on that back foot. Keep pushing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tighten up your core, tighten up your hip girdle, then lift the foot. As you can see, very limited on this side compared to the other. Oh, and I'm getting a cramp. Push through it. 2, 1. Slowly let it down. Relax the tension everywhere. Ooh, take a big breath. That took a lot out of me there. Jesus. And here we go. Start pushing down on that back foot. Remember, we're going to about 70, 80%. Once you reach there, maintain it. And if you're doing an adequate job, you should start trembling. If you're not pushing hard enough. Check in with that front knee. Make sure that front knee is pressing into that mat. Pushing your chest up, pushing your tailbone out, and pressing down on that back foot. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. Keep pushing. 10, 9, 8, 7. Keep pushing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tighten up your core, tighten up your hip girdle, then lift the foot. Hold it up, hold it up, hold it up. Tighten up that core more. 2, 1. Slowly let it down. Ouch. And let's go ahead and do those lift-offs. Here, you're lifting the hip up, rotating that leg up, bringing the foot down, and retract. Lift up, rotate down. Oh. And then again, as you can see, this is quite difficult for me on this side. Couple more. Last one. Wow. Those were actually quite bad. They were quite sloppy. So do better than me. Ooh, I need a second there. That took a lot out of me. All right, back to tabletop. Now we got to do the hip C.A.R on this side. So again, the meat of your hand pressing into the mat. Spread your fingers as wide as you possibly can. Rotate the crook of your elbow forward. Shift your body weight forward. Walk your knees underneath you. Tuck the toes. From there, keep the spine strong or tight. From here, you're going to just bring knee to chest. Open up. Internally rotate as we start to then hip extend. Come back to the starting position. Then reverse. Hip extension up. Externally rotate at the hip. Try not to move the spine. As you can see, I have a little bit of deviation on this side. Come back to the starting position. Reverse. Again. Up. Strong. Internally rotate as I then push up towards the ceiling. And then reverse. Woo. Those are actually quite difficult. The better you get at them, the more difficult they become. because you're able to intensify and isolate each individual joint independently, which is what we're trying to strive here for. So just keep that in mind when you do this, that the more repetition or the more often that you do this, the hip CARs end up being almost like an additional auxiliary workout as well. So on top of the pails and the rails, when you start kind of learning or getting access to new ranges of motion, then all of a sudden the CARs, which are normally just for your nervous system, end up being quite taxing on you as well. All right, let's move on to the spine now. So now that we've warmed up the hips, so now the hips are actively working on rotation, we're now learning how to then detach the hip girdle and the spine from each other. A lot of our back pain that we have is just because everything moves in one continuous joint, and that's what we want to try to separate, is rotation from the actual femur, the hip bone or the leg bone, from the actual hip girdle, from that does anterior and posterior direction, which is this. I'm exaggerating here, but this. Okay, from the actual spinal flexion and extension. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the cat-cow. But we're doing the cat-cow. We're warming up our spine before we get into that inverted position. We're going to do what's called a thoracic cat-cow. Okay, thoracic is just the medical term for your upper back. It's the top end of your spine. So we're trying to maximize the range of motion for the upper back, the lower back, and then all together. So the first one we're going to do is you're going to sit back with your toes or your laces touching the mat. You're going to walk your hands backwards towards your knees. The same principle here. Knee to the hands, spread your fingers, crook of the elbow forward. From there, you're going to start with the pelvic bone. You're going to do what's called a posterior tilt. So you're going to posterior tilt your hip and your hip girdle, and you're going to roll up your spine into an exaggerated cat, because you now have more range of motion on your upper back. From there, you're going to reverse. You're then going to start pushing the tailbone out and really exaggerate the spinal extension on the upper back into the cow position, and then bring the head last. When you get to this point, obviously you can hear my voice is changing a little bit. We're trying to stretch these muscles here that get overworked when we do jiu-jitsu. Okay, so keep your chin pinned to the ceiling as you then start to tuck the pelvis back under. Try to keep it as long as you can until you have no other choice. So then bring the head to come along, and now pin it to your chest, and then reverse. Start pushing that tailbone out, rolling up your spine, mid back, upper back, then head. Then tuck that pelvis under, keeping the chin pinned to the ceiling. Bring the head last. Last one, and reverse. Tailbone to the ceiling. Really do an exaggerated spinal extension. Really push that chest out. Really push that tailbone to the ceiling. Really bring that head up towards the sky. Awesome. And relax for just a second. Whew, that felt good. All right, get back to tabletop. Make sure I'm on the camera here. Yep, get back to tabletop here. From there, you're going to drop down to your elbows here. You're going to interlace your fingers. You're going to place the top of your head onto the mat and kind of roll forward so that your upper back is rounded. From there, you may have to make a little bit of minor adjustments, bringing your knees a little closer to your body. The idea here is to keep your upper back limited or rounded as we do the same cat-cow motion, but now just for the lower back. So pushing the tailbone to the ceiling. Exaggerate that extension. And then tucking the pelvis under. Nice and slow, bringing the pubic bone towards the rib cage. Really round that lower back as much as you possibly can. And then reverse. Pushing that tailbone to the ceiling.
Really exaggerate that tailbone to the ceiling. If you're doing a good job, you should feel like almost like a little bit of a pull here, which is what we want. Trying to get that hip girdle to move in its maximal range of motion so that it has as much spinal movement as possible. One last one. Awesome. So keep in mind that the hip girdle is like the foundation or the foundation for like a building. Your spine is the building. The more rotation and independent movement that the foundation has, the easier the spine is going to be able to move. I've heard, I don't know, I'm assuming so, but it's just like architectural buildings are actually designed to sway, and that's because of weather. They apparently at one time they didn't do that, and then buildings would fall. It's the same concept here with your spine structure. The more dexterity that you have in your hip girdle, from anterior to posterior tilt to lateral movement to independent of the femur rotating, the more dexterity you're going to have of your actual spine, which is our goal here. The more we can move our spine independently, the better we move. The better we move, the better we feel. The better we feel, the better overall everything our life is. Okay? So now we're going back to the same cat-cow. Now we're doing a regular cat-cow. So we go back to tabletop, same thing. Hands underneath you, spread your fingers, crooked the elbow, walk your hands underneath. So now we're combining the two. So now we're trying to exaggerate the upper back and the lower back at the same time. So we start with the posterior tilt of the pelvis, and you start rolling up the spine, bringing that pubic bone up towards the rib cage as you try to bring it around. Pin that chin to your chest. Once it's there, you start reversing. You start pushing that tailbone to the ceiling, nice and slow. The idea here is to try to communicate to each individual vertebrae, get maximal range of motion of each one. Head last. Keep that chin pinned to the ceiling. Start tucking that pelvis under. Nice and slow. Rolling up the spine. Bring the head last. And again, pushing that tailbone to the ceiling. If you're doing a good job, you should feel almost like a cramp around the muscles around your spine, which again is what we're striving for. Keep that chin pinned to the ceiling. Start tucking the pelvis under. Slow and steady. Slow wins the race with this kind of stuff. Last one. Awesome. All right. So to wrap this up, we're gonna do to wrap up this section of the class. We're gonna do what's called the Thoracic C.A.R. or spinal C.A.R. What we're doing is we're gonna do a rotation of the spine by tucking our toes here. Look, what we're gonna do is tuck our toes in the back. We're gonna push off our toes to kind of holding our hip girdle strong. We're gonna hug ourselves here. Okay. What we're gonna do is we flex. Now, when we're doing this, I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see. The idea is not to shift our hips back. The idea is to hold this strong. So you got to keep your toes very active here, okay, so that this hip girdle doesn't move. So it stays over your actual knee joint. So what you're going to feel is you're going to feel a little bit of triggerness or tightness in your toes, and your glutes, your butt, and your hamstring are going to be firing to hold this strong so that this part doesn't move. Once you hug yourself, we're going to do maximal spinal flexion. So come down as far as you can. Then from there, I'm going to turn again. From there, you're going to rotate to one side. So for me, it's the left. You're going to then dip that shoulder back, and you're going to come back around to the largest possible circle with your spine to the opposite side. Rotate it around. Come back to neutral. Then repeat. Flex down. Rotate. Dip that shoulder back. Come all the way around to the opposite side. Oh, this feels good. At the same time, very difficult. And back to center. So I'm going to rotate so you can see it from the side. Okay, so now we're going to go the opposite direction. So again, toes active, glute firing, everything stays stationary. From there, you're going to flex down. For me, I'm going to be rotating to the right, dipping that right shoulder back, and coming all the way around to the opposite side. Come back to neutral, and let's do one more. Flex down, rotate to the right, or whichever side is the opposite for you, dip that shoulder back, come all the way around. And back to center. Whew, awesome. That felt yummy. Whew. All right. This next one, I call, there's no name for this. This is basically, I call this actually, I don't call this. Sebastian Broche, the owner of Yoga for BJJ, calls this the JiuJitsu stretch. Okay, so you go back to tabletop. What we're going to do is we're going to karate kick our leg out to the side with our hands underneath us. Arm, and we're going to weave it through and grab our opposite leg here. Okay? The goal here is to try to disperse the discomfort across multiple joints here. So if you feel like right now, because this leg is hurt, I'm feeling the discomfort of my leg here. So I have to adjust myself so that it's not focused here, because the goal here is to teach our body to relax in this position. There is no right or wrong way to do this. But there's a lot of jiu-jitsu here. This is inverted guard, forward roll, guard replacement. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do from this position, and you got to learn to be comfortable here. If you have the flexibility, you can raise the right arm, for me, it's the right arm, towards the ceiling. You're going to put yourself in a Kimura, and then use that Kimura to then create more spinal rotation. And then just sit here. This position is where you want to focus on your breath. So if you haven't watched any of the videos of where I do diaphragmatic breathing, I'm going to ask my lovely tech person to add the link down below for the diaphragmatic breathing class. You can also place your hand overhead, increase the rotation, adjust your own back, which I just did, which felt amazing. Slowly get yourself out of it. Oh, wow. Oof. And then let's just do just a couple low intensity cat-cows. So just kind of go through the motions. We just got to reset our spine. Not too much effort into it. Just move a little bit. Awesome. Now the other side. Back to tabletop. Karate kick the opposite leg out to the side. Weave the opposite arm underneath. Roll onto the shoulder. You're going to feel different things on different sides. Like for me, this rotation on this side is very difficult. Very difficult for me to relax my shoulder on this side. I feel a lot of tension in my lower back, a little bit on my right hip, as well as very limited mobility on my upper neck. Just sit here for a little bit. Again, reach that top arm behind you, put yourself in a Kimura, and increase that range of motion. Slowly walk your hands underneath you. Oh, Jesus. Whew. Tabletop. Same thing. Just low irradiation, low effort. Cat-cows. Just move your spine around. Awesome. Okay, let me move my mic out of the way. Now we're doing the actual inversion part. Okay, so a lot of the issues with inversion, I'm saying firsthand because before I started doing all this mobility stuff, before I started jiu-jitsu, very immobile. Spine didn't work, had very limited rotation in my hips. Basically, I was stiff everywhere. I'm also not the lightest guy. I weigh about 5'7". Usually, the heavier you are, the more limited rotation or more limited mobility you have of your body, because your body, basically, you have to earn your body's trust. It's a safety mechanism that your body has in order for it to protect itself so that you don't accidentally hurt yourself. The heavier you are, the more load, more force, there's more safety mechanisms with your body. Okay, so one of the best things you can do for inverted guard is just practicing being in there and just comfortably sitting there so that you can understand, which is what we're going to do now. So from here, once we've already warmed up our spine, all we're going to do is invert. And just hang here. The idea behind this is to try to relax our legs towards our abdomen. Just sit here. Now, if you did a good job, what I feel is I feel those same muscles that we were working in the exaggerated cat-cows starting to relax. I can feel them around my spine saying, we're warmed up. We've already moved maximally in a control setting. Now we're doing it under load, which is the load of my lower body, my legs. And with each second that goes by, all of a sudden, there's more space available. My legs start to get closer to the ground. My knees get closer to my chest. There's more space for my head. Just relax. Now to tie this in with the hip, when we lower our legs, the goal here is we want to actively pull our knees towards our chest as we try to bring our spine down, so that we focus on firing these muscle or guard retention, so that our knees are glued to our chest as we lower our spine towards the mat. Try to do it as slow as possible. You're going to reach a certain point where you're not going to be able to control it. But the goal here is to try to create that dexterity of the spine. Bring your hips down, drop your feet to the ground, and then just do a couple bridges here. Just to reset the spine. We did excessive spinal flexion. Now we're just kind of resetting the vertebrae, resetting the spine so that it comes back to neutral. This right here after a good jiu-jitsu session is almost like mandatory. You do a lot of heavy rolls. I would suggest doing this after you're done, just to reset your spine, because we're in a lot of crunch positions. Couple more. All right, one more time. So again, invert. Just hang out here. Play with it a little bit. Try to go to one side, go to the other. Turn your head. Again, same thing with the breathing here. Breathe. A few more seconds. All right, from here, again, actively pull your knees to your chest. Keep your thigh pressed as close as you can to your abdomen as you slowly lower your spine down. You should almost get like a cramp in your abs. Back to the bridges. Couple more. Awesome. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to tie it into jiu-jitsu. So you want to basically save all the work here. So by saving the work, what I mean by that is we're going to do a Granby roll or a side roll or whatever it may be that we sometimes do in jiu-jitsu warm-up, and most of us do it really, really poorly. Okay, so now that we've already warmed up our back, we've warmed up our hip, we've created flexibility or mobility with each individual joint. Now we're going to tie it into actually dynamic. So do a couple. I personally like to grab on the side. It allows me to then just relax my hips. What you're trying to do is keep your feet. So when you roll under, you're not allowing your feet to come off the ground as you roll to the other side. And then you go back again to this other direction. Tuck under. Keep your feet on the ground as you roll to the other side. And then again, tuck under, keeping your feet on the ground. And one last time. Awesome, guys. So I hope this helped. I mean, I could never even do the side roll until probably, I would say about like maybe 6 months, 8 months ago, just because my body didn't trust me in those positions. So this is something that, you know, I'm the perfect example of how you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I wasn't gifted. I wasn't one of those. I didn't start jiu-jitsu when I was a kid, so I didn't learn how to move the jiu-jitsu body when you're a kid and you're very when you have a lot of dexterity. So if I'm able to kind of do this process, I'm sure that you can as well. It's just a matter of doing it consistently, doing it day in and day out, or as often as you possibly can. And that's why we provide these classes for you. So this, in combination with the yoga class that we're going to have later tonight at 6 p.m. With Tyler, is what's going to get you those gains, not only for you to move better, but also to feel a little stronger and to help your body heal. Because if you do a really heavy training session, everything is in the front side. Everything's all like this all the time for guard and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff that we're doing is geared to kind of teach you how to be back a better human so that the aches and pains kind of go away and they dissipate a whole lot faster. Anyway, guys, I hope this helped. If you haven't already, do me a favor, subscribe, share this with somebody. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I really, really, really appreciate all the stuff that for those of you that watch. We also do all these classes donation-based. The link's down below. You don't have to give. Anything would be greatly appreciated. If not, I hope to see you on the mat. Appreciate it, guys.